Okay, I thought I might share my latest build with you. This is the one I've been working on, Tamiya's Dynahead, and that chassis is really, I guess, more of a crawler-based one, as opposed to the Kong head that does not include the portal axles. That's probably old news. This kit has been out for quite some time, and I only just recently saw it at a local hobby shop, so I figured I would just give this one a go. It seemed fairly reasonable price-wise. It's something I'm not really totally familiar with. The whole chassis was just two halves and containing entirely all gear-driven drivetrain. So, but it seems pretty robust. The videos that I had seen on it also seemed to indicate it was pretty stout. So I figured I would give it a try. The speed on it was a little bit less than I thought. I really should have known. I mean, portal axles don't mean speed runner, or anything like that. So I really should have known. I probably would have been a better fit for me to go with Kong head. But anyway, so this is the route that we're going to take with this one. And that's a 3300 kV motor. Like I say, it was fairly slow compared to what I'm used to. So I may end up having to switch this drive system out anyway, because I have a special idea for a different body. And the height of that speed control in the front is proving to be very challenging. As you can see, I already have the Muse Racing right angle adapters there. Those are 4mm connectors if you have this speed control. And the way that comes pre-wired, the connections seem to be very tall in the front. So I have those right angle ones there to try to help save a little bit of space when we go to put the body on. And as it comes around, we can also see the two Agfrc servos. Those are pretty powerful. I'll give you a slight demonstration later. It seems to work really well. The battery system and receiver doesn't seem to be too taxed by them. I was running them at 6 volts. They didn't seem a whole lot more powerful at 7.2 volts when I adjusted that setting on the speed control. So we left it at 6 volts. You could also see that little Hobby Park fuel cell in the back there. That was just an easy means to give a little bit of protection to a receiver in the back while dressing up the chassis just a bit. And I also took a shortcut and took those very long speed control wires and servo wires and tucked them all in there as well. There really wasn't a whole lot of room left in that box by the time I put all the extra servo wire in there and the receiver, although it was a Noble receiver that was pretty small. The rest of the space is taken up by all that extra wiring. You'd be better off to shorten the wires, obviously. This project was just taking me way longer than I thought. I had not initially ordered the bearings and started to realize that there's no way you're going to want to build this thing without bearings if you're putting anything more than probably the stock motor. That would be my opinion anyway. And then as it comes around, we can also see the support that Tamiya makes, and that's normally blue. I do like to deanodize my parts oftentimes and then either paint them or leave them polished. So in this case, maybe we'll go with black. I may paint that black. I don't have a means for custom anodizing anything, although that would really probably look the best. But that servo brace is an interesting unit. There's a bit of confusion about it online. If I could just quickly go over that. You really want that brace to be clamped right up against the servo. When I'm done talking about the overall, I can show you that when it comes looping around once more. But there should be no gap between that brace and your servo. What it does is it essentially just helps sandwich that servo between the chassis and the brace. But in this case, I would say maybe they could have done a little bit better job by making the plastic a little more sturdy around there. I am seeing a bit of flexing on the steering, even with the brace there. So, and I was very careful to make additional mounts, which I'll also try to show you. So as it comes around here, I'll detach and I'll show you this setup. We'll turn the radio on. This is one of the few cars that I have just about completely ready to go. Let me just, I'll turn him on, and then, now that fan is not on. I was not familiar with this. You can turn it on in a setting. It was a pretty nice setup. I'll go ahead and put the type of speed control that is, and we'll zoom in as well. But the settings are all via. I happen to do it on my iPad, so there was a lot of adjustability with that, which was kind of nice to see. And the app claims that it doesn't share your information, which is also a nice surprise. So I have it set up for the four-wheel traditional steering. You can also set them to do crawling. I did see a video about that, but unfortunately I couldn't follow what they were saying to do. It was not in English, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not. I'm sure it's some type of setting in the transmitter would allow us to have that go. Just inverting the polarity on the rear servo probably would get you what you're looking for. But okay, so back to this situation with this car. I was going to zoom in and just show you a bit about what we did here. And I guess I should turn this turntable off as well. This particular system, maybe I can see. Yeah, I'll put it in the description because I really don't know what this is called or anything. So, but let me just try to make this short. GL550, 3300 kV, and as I say, I don't know what that one was. I made this custom carbon panel here on the side to originally try to hide some of the wiring here to make it look a little bit neater. And I think it turned out all right. I would like to get some wire loom that's meant for RC and maybe cover the rest of the wires, especially these servo wires back here. And then we made as well a mount for the receiver box here, and just some custom spacers. And that just screws into here. You're gonna have to drill and tap some holes here. Now it's a little sketchy of an idea. I'm not sure I'm 100% behind it for anybody out there to try, but you could see it's pretty sturdy. Really, you should have some plastic here to take up the gap because it's just kind of riding cantilevered off of here right now. And you should have a spacer and some double-sided tape under there. I'll try to kind of show you, see the way that is under there. You can kind of see the light coming through. But as I say, this project was taking me way longer than I had hoped. The shocks are pretty nice. I want to say, I think they're called Toomod. Let's see if I can zoom in. I think so. Yeah, Toomod. And a little bit, I did have a little bit of leaking up here. Now, I don't know if you could put some type of grease or sealant up there before you filled them, but I could not separate this plastic piece from this cap. So I'm not exactly sure. Not all of them leaked like that. So it's really kind of strange to me. And I did have to fill them more with oil. The springs that came with them are really too stiff for crawling, in my opinion. If you know what's a good spring to use for this truck, the factory springs also seemed kind of stiff to me. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to turn off this system here. I guess I give you a small idea of crawling and how slow it can go. Pretty silent. You really only hear the drivetrain itself, I believe. I think that's the gears. But anyway, I don't want to make this video too boring for you. Let me shut this system off. And
signal lost.
Oh, sorry.
Signal lost. Shutting down.
Oh, finally. Okay. So back here I made a special mount for this. The whole idea to making these mounts and everything was to just get the servos as low as possible. This chassis seems to suffer from a high center of gravity, so best to get as much weight down low as possible. As I added a big metal box for the receiver, but I figured at least we could do what we could do. I didn't use any servo savers. They're all just servo horns. This one uses a plastic one on the bottom, which is not the best for crawling, most likely. This one here does use a metal one that was provided in this package. So there's the servo, and they were only about 23 bucks each. So I figured since I needed two, better not try to break the bank with a more expensive one. Let's see, what else could I show you about this? Same thing here. I'll show you what I did with this mount. So when you get this Tamiya mount, I deanodized it, but that's kind of not really the point of showing you this. When you use these, there should be no gap between this silver mount and the servo. What you're trying to do is sandwich these pieces together and capture the servo in the middle. Okay, what I have done as well, might be able to barely see, I have an aluminum L bracket that's bolted in there. Maybe if I tap it in there, it'll brighten it up. Sorry. Let's see if I do this. Not so much, or maybe from this angle. There you go. So I made those aluminum brackets there. They're pretty stout, and they were good on their own, but you did get a small amount of flexing at this mount. This really should have been slightly redesigned. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I absolutely love Tamiya, right? But in this case, for a powerful servo in a somewhat of a crawler situation, or a basher especially, probably, it's not really the best, but this metal piece definitely helps. So I really don't have another additional idea. I didn't use their holes to mount it, because my servo is mounted even lower than what they have. Okay, so it wasn't really too tough to do and make that, but just a bit of careful planning. And also over here, you might be curious about this. When I usually make these, almost always, I'm not sure, I don't have, even with non-marring pliers, the ones that I had at least were still marking up these threaded pieces. It really should have, I guess, a turnbuckle style one anyway, really, especially on the steering pieces. But what ends up happening is it always gets marred, and on a basher or something that's not going to really be a shelf queen, maybe it doesn't matter. But so almost invariably there's some marring on here when I build these. So I usually just cut, once I have the length according to the manual, just cut it a little bit longer, because the heat shrink shrinks, obviously. And that'll protect this from rust a little bit, and it will also hide any little marks that may have been created as you tried to make this the proper length. And it's cheap enough, heat shrink tubing is cheap enough, and then it kind of neatens it up just a little bit. So I figured I'd show you that really quick. We made the front mount for the speed control. Maybe if I can get you a profile, I'll show you how I did that. Maybe you could just barely see the screw under there. Right, let me see, I'll try to put it dead center, like quick scoping or something. Okay, here you go. Yeah, that screw that's kind of dark in the center there, you should just barely be able to see it. That's the mounting point, and then the other mounting point for that custom piece is right up here by this wire. Let's try to get you a better angle. It's shaking you around. This is very unprofessional. I do apologize. Let's see. Can you see it? Will you see it? Let's see. Right down in there. Okay, you can see the highlight in the center of the screen of the metal tab that I added to that carbon. And that screws just into this piece. So there's nothing really critical there. And as far as what I saw, I believe that piece is shielded from the gears. So even drilling it, if there's a little bit of plastic, I'm 99% sure that if you had a tiny bit of plastic fall down in there, you wouldn't have a problem. But all that aside, I would recommend that you figure this platform out as you're building it. So that way, if something does fall in there and it does manage to get into the gears, you're not saying, hey, that was a horrible idea. What'd you do? So essentially what's underneath that carbon platform is brass, and I soldered the brass together to create an additional platform. You can't really see it because I painted it all black afterwards, but you can kind of see there's a support rod right there. Actually, that's like an extruded square, like more like a beam shape, I guess, but a hollow square tube. And then that has some support pieces that sort of fan out from that position outwards to give the plate some more support. Excuse me. So you end up with a pretty sturdy platform for this if you have that piece as well as the mount that's in the front. And again, these are just Muse Racing. Those are 4mm, and it makes for a neater setup, I think. When you're able to get the wires nice and short. What else? I guess that's about it. The carbon plate here on the side probably does offer a little more strength. You might even be able to extend it all the way out to include some of these mounting points in the front, and maybe even all the way towards the back to here. That would really give you a chassis stiffening, even if it was only on one side, which I think you would be forced to do unless you made something that was instead of this and kind of included the whole thing on this side too. But I guess that about wraps this one up. I hate to keep spinning you around and all of that, and I don't really have much to say about it. That about wraps it up. I hope to have a body. I do have a custom body coming up that will prove to be challenging to get mounted on here, but I didn't want to leave anybody who's subscribed without something to say, hey, you know, he's still alive and he still likes RC. So, at any rate, take care, and if you have any questions about it, please let me know. I would always do my best to try to help you. Thanks for watching.